Good morning, environment advocates. Magandang umaga po. Mukhang hindi pa kayo nag-breakfast, ano? Magandang umaga po. Good morning. All right. So we see some more empty seats. Maybe they belong to those in the relief operations pa. So we expect to come in a while. Chris?
Yes, good morning. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Business Summit, the path towards a climate-smart industry. Alam mo, Lisa, timing to, no? Dumaan si Ondoy, si Pedring, si Peping, and then one of the biggest devastations that we have is actually the recent one, which is Yolanda. You know, this is a wake-up call, I guess, for all of us, not only in the relief sector, in the social sector, but also for us in the business sector. Bottom line is, what can we do and how can we contribute, and when is the time to do it? Siguro the time to do it is now, and we have to start to help at least our climate before it gets any worse than it was.
Yes, and so we start talking about it again in this conference, hopefully with some solutions before the day ends. And so we're ready to start. May I invite everyone to please stand up for the invocation and the national anthem. I'd like to call on Mr. Kring the Kanay to lead the invocation.
Bumubulong ang langit sa ating mga puso, nagpapaalala na ang Diyos ay pakinggan, maging tunay sa paglilingkod sa kapwa at bayan. Buhayin natin ang pagmamahalan. Kay dilim man ang ating landasin, huwag bibitiw, huwag lisanin, iyong alalahanin. Pagsubok lilipas din, nasa ating kamay ang tunay na pag-asa, sa gabay ng Ama na lagi nating kasama. Isang panalangin ko'y mamalas, kaunlaran ng bayang Pilipinas. At sa bawat Pilipino, dalangin ay maging maliwanag ang bukas, at manalig sa Diyos, sundin kanyang landas. Isang panalangin ko'y maging ganap, ang kapayapaan sa mundo. Nasa ating kamay ang tunay na pag-asa, ang biyayang taglay sa kapwa ay mag-alay. Isang panalangin ko'y mamalas, kaunlaran ng bayang Pilipinas. At sa bawat Pilipino, dalangin ay maging maliwanag ang bukas, at manalig sa Diyos, sundin kanyang landas. Isang panalangin pag-ibig ay ialay mo.
Please remain standing for the Philippine National Anthem.
Thank you. You may all take your seat. Thank you, Ms. Kring, the Kanay. Let me correct myself there. All right. To formally welcome us into this summit are the heads of the organizing teams, starting off with the private sector. Attorney Miguel Varela stands out for his persistent and sustained advocacy of industrial harmony, global competitiveness, and the development of small and medium enterprises, both in his various leadership positions in the Philippine business community and his role as the country's familiar voice in international conferences. He is the president of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry and chairman of the Employers Confederation of the Philippines, among other positions. In his stewardship of both the PCCI and ECOP, he has consistently implemented various outreach programs, especially those that enhance the capacities of SMEs to enable them to be more competitive in the global market. Attorney Varela has been articulating the concerns not only of Filipino employers, but also of the Filipino workers during the annual sessions of the International Labor Organization in Geneva. His global outlook on employment, particularly the employer's social responsibility, labor management relations, protection of migrant workers, occupational safety, and productivity improvement is well recognized. And so, ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together and call on the PCCI President, Mr. Miguel Varela.
Thank you very much for your very kind introduction. Secretary Lucille Sering of the Climate Change Commission, Commissioner Nader Sanyo, also of the Climate Change Commission, other distinguished special guests. Let me greet my Chairman of the PCCI Committee on Environment, Jess Reyes, and his co-chair, Rene Morento. Also my colleagues in the PCCI board who are here, Ms. Nora Lacuna, Vice President for National Capital Region, Ed Nicolas, Vice President for South Luzon. I also see the Regional Governor from Region 2, Aracela Durin. Distinguished friends, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. First of all, allow me to congratulate the Climate Change Commission for organizing this very timely and significant industry forum on climate change. The need to inform the industry and the business community in general cannot be overemphasized, given that the effect of climate change is already upon us. Look at what happened in the Visayas region. The wrath of Super Typhoon Yolanda has literally put the lives of people at a standstill. Economic activities shut down, and the government and local folks taken by surprise for this kind of never-before experienced deluge, and have to grapple with its aftermath. According to the reports, the typhoon has so far claimed at least 235 people, some of them and entire families. There are still about 1,600 plus still missing, and thousands more left injured, homeless and stunned and grief-stricken, and damage to properties have been estimated to have reached more than 12 billion pesos. Weather-related events such as super typhoon will continue to hurt us. The Pag-asa projected that extreme weather conditions will continue to become more frequent in the future. Super typhoons may become the new normal occurrence. Grim as it is, we believe in the PCCI that climate change and climate-related disasters can be reduced and investment costs curtailed. However, this needs concerted action and concerted efforts among key stakeholders at all levels. Everyone must do their share to make climate and disaster resilience part of our daily lives. PCCI has been in the forefront in influencing the business community by providing relevant information to companies, particularly the small and medium enterprises, on possible interventions which they can implement in their own business operations. To highlight the private sector's critical role in promoting sustainable enterprises, the PCCI continues to implement the Excellence in Ecology and Economy Awards, which we give every year, which seeks to recognize companies that have demonstrated innovative and outstanding environmental performance. Through the implementation of this award system, we have to increase awareness and appreciation of the business sector on practical environmental programs and the companies that can implement. We also hope to galvanize all stakeholders, particularly the business sector, to come up with a concerted efforts to protect and manage our environment. We continue to partner also with government agencies to ensure that policies and regulations and that mainstream climate change are in place. For the past 4 years or so, we have been an active partner in the implementation of the project Green Philippine Islands of Sustainability, which seeks to improve environmental and sustainable industrial development of Metro Manila and the Calabarzon area. Specifically, the project seeks to reduce pollution level and increase resource efficiency levels in the specific companies in Metro Manila and its link region in the Calabarzon. Through this project, we were able to increase the awareness and use of environmentally friendly technologies and practices of small and medium enterprises, and likewise enable them to implement legal compliance and safety instruments and eventually increase their resource efficiency. PCCI continues to participate in other projects and advocacies, such as the Earth Hour, the Green Business Asia, greening the supply chain, and the business imperatives of climate change. With the partnership with the Climate Change Commission, we hope to further influence the government in providing the necessary support for the business sectors, in such manner as continue recognizing the building effective public-private partnerships to respond to the climate challenge that will require major public investments to catalyze and support business and civil society led initiatives, especially in relation to research, development, deployment, and transfer of low-carbon energy technologies and practices. Also urgently create, in close consultation with the business community and civil society, comprehensive, long-term, and effective legislative frameworks designed to provide the appropriate regulatory and incentive mechanisms such as carbon tax, cap and trade, and other market-based instruments to encourage more sustainable consumption and production and send the right market signals for business to act. Also, strictly and consistently implement existing and future environmental laws, including the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Solid Waste Management Act, and the Renewable Energy Act. We only have one planet. Therefore, it's important that government and the private sector must continue to work together to ensure that our Mother Earth is protected. So maraming salamat po sa inyo and good morning again.
Thank you very much to our President, Attorney Miguel Varela. And now for the government side, we have Mr. Nadere Vieb Sanyo. He is a commissioner of the National Climate Change Commission. Sorry, Yeb, nasanay. Okay, he is a commissioner of the National Climate Change Commission, the country's lead policy-making body on climate change. Before being appointed as a commissioner, he served as the head of the Climate Change and Energy Program of the Worldwide Fund for Nature, or WWF. He is a veteran of the Philippine environmental movement, and he served with the WWF for more than 13 years, working on domestic and international issues that relate to climate change, clean energy, biodiversity, coastal and marine resources, tourism, and local governance. He has been working on climate change issues since 1997, establishing WWF's Climate Change Program in the Philippines. A graduate of the University of the Philippines, Diliman, he holds a bachelor's degree in philosophy and a graduate degree in community development. He also attended the College of Conservation Leadership in the Netherlands and the University College in Washington University. Commissioner Yeb Sanyo is a lead negotiator in the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change and serves as deputy head of delegation. He just returned from the recent negotiations in Warsaw, Poland, where he made a strong statement in the efforts of moving climate change and the efforts of moving it forward globally. Ladies and gentlemen, Commissioner Yeb Sanyo.
Thank you very much, Chris. Of course, it would be my pleasure to be associated with the Solid Waste Management Commission, but I belong to another commission, and I'm glad to and honored to be standing before all of you this morning. So I'd like to acknowledge, of course, the presence of Secretary Saring from the Climate Change Commission, Attorney Varela from the PCCI, all officers of the PCCI, and all members and friends, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, very pleasant morning to all of you. In the aftermath of Typhoon Yolanda, there are indeed many realizations, and that is absolutely certain. And one of these realizations is that people want better lives. And indeed, it is our wish in the Climate Change Commission that with this business summit, the process will continue to pursue the vision, engender the innovation, clear thinking, and decisive action needed to sustain life on this precious planet that we have borrowed from our children, and the better life that all of us aspire for. But I think we all know, friends, that in practice, the real actions and innovation is very much alive in this very room. Just look at the people seated beside you, and you know what I'm talking about. And indeed, what I find most inspiring in this moment of a planetary emergency, as well as a national emergency, is the powerful surge of brilliant ideas and pioneering activity from the synergy of government, civil society, and of course, the private sector, taking the lead where most organizations feared to tread, and giving courageous expression to humanity's basic goodness and inherent natural wisdom. And such wisdom and energy will and must generate the political will to take all of us towards the ambitious future. And this experience has demonstrated beyond any reasonable doubt that it is absurd to isolate our economy from the encompassing natural ecosystem that provides the very source of support for life and resources that our very economy needs to persist and function. This is the same ecosystem that provides for the economy and fosters social well-being. In this era of fiscal restraint, and we see all of the developments around the world, an era of economic challenges that seems to have narrowed our horizons and perspectives to knee-jerk reactions, including panicky, short-sighted stimulus, bailouts, and deficit reduction schemes. We watch all of these while the natural world which is our source of life, gets increasingly diminishing attention. And especially now, with this forum, and perhaps in the context of Typhoon Yolanda, it is an even more timely reminder to expand our horizons and think long-term. It is time for us to look at innovative solutions that can stabilize both the economy and the climate, create jobs, and foster conservation, and ultimately improve and enhance quality of life and make our communities more resilient. Just last September, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released its Working Group 1 report, which talks about climate science, and the report tells us a very disturbing reality. It is extremely likely that human influence has been the dominant cause of climate change. And in June of this year, we have breached the 400 parts per million concentrations of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. We are the first generation to be inhaling air that has 400 parts per million of carbon dioxide. So inhale, my friends. You are the first generation to inhale this kind of air with so much carbon dioxide in it. Climate change is a stark reality, and I don't think anyone in this room would disagree with that. Now, governments around the world, as Chris has correctly pointed out, met in the past 2 weeks in Warsaw, in Poland, and much important work has been done, but also a lot remains to be done. The international community, as we sit here, continues to grapple with lasting solutions to climate change. And in the face of this planetary crisis, can we remain optimistic? Can we look at the glass being half full? My answer is yes. Yes, especially with the business sector taking leadership. And yes, we can be optimistic, because only through a positive vision can we achieve positive change. It is likewise crucial that we do not wait for the international community to arrive at an agreement. As you have heard earlier, we have been following this process for a long time, and it is a slow, painful, convoluted international process. But we can start making a difference immediately. We don't have to wait for world leaders to take action. That is what trailblazing means. And I cannot think of a better sector than the private sector to be perfect trailblazers, leading by example. After all, business and industry engagement is a fundamental element to confronting climate change and reducing risk from disasters, whether it is pursuing cleaner sources of energy and helping mitigate climate change, or adapting to the changing risks that we face. As we say, we need all hands on deck, and the business sector can bring tremendous resources, capacity, and synergy to the table. What gives us great confidence is that we see your sector, business and industry, effectively responding to this call. So business leaders have become increasingly cognizant and conscious that climate change and disaster risk are directly relevant and significant to your business operations. In fact, many business leaders have now gone beyond corporate social responsibility, but also in terms of viewing the climate change problem from the point of view of building resilience and supply and value chain risks. What business will need, and this is where government comes in, as the business prepares to take action, would be long-term, reliable, and stable policy frameworks that would foster a level playing field and encourage investments for sustainability. This summit is part of our effort to strengthen trust and communication between business leaders, policymakers, as well as the scientific and academic community. What we envision is to enhance interaction and to foster a concerted effort to make business understand the risks and bridge policy and science, policy and solutions. We also want to see long-term and forward-looking investments. And what we need to understand is that confronting climate change and addressing disaster risk makes great business and economic sense. Now, as a country that's familiar with disasters, this is an unfortunate cycle because we are always in between two disasters. Now, if you are always in between two disasters, the farther we are from the last one, so the farther we are from Yolanda, the nearer we are to the next one. It is a vicious cycle. However, we can change this. Thank you for the background music. But we can change this, and we can turn things around and stop this cycle. But we cannot lose sight of the enormity of this task. In order to address climate change, we need to fundamentally and continuously transform business and how our economy works. And we have heard too many times, perhaps, that we cannot afford to continue business as usual. Now, will Yolanda and the climate change challenge motivate us to face the difficult task of transforming the way we do business, the way we do governance? It is a real choice and a real opportunity, and business can and must make a difference. Now, we find ourselves at a very critical juncture. Even the most ambitious global action on climate change will not be enough to avert the crisis. We now live in a carbon-constrained world, and we face a future that leaves us with ever-growing climate risks. My friends, it is too late to rely, or it's too late to talk about rich countries being able to solve the climate change crisis on their own. We have entered a new era that will demand global solidarity from countries like ours in order to fight climate change and ensure that the pursuit of sustainable human development remains at the fore of our global community's efforts. And this is possible. Now, I am fully aware that while this imagination of solving climate change and the development problem are essential elements to encourage progress, they are never enough, and much more needs to be done. Imagine if we can muster the political will to be imaginative yet sensitive, to be judicious yet fearless. After all, the real essential prerequisite to solve climate change remains elusive, but genuine trust between all of us can make a difference. and business stands at the forefront of this golden opportunity. Now it is time for action. It is time to put things into practice. It's been noted in the World Economic and Social Survey that nothing short of a technological revolution on the scale of the first industrial revolution will be required to meet the challenge of sustainable development. So it's a huge challenge for all of us. It is time to transform the world. It is time to show that we all care. Now finally, let me end with a well-known story of Jose Rizal's childhood. It is said that Rizal and his brother Pasiano went on a boat ride. And during this trip, one of Jose Rizal's slippers, I don't know which foot, fell into the river and was swept by the current. Since it was too far to recover one of his slippers, Jose Rizal removed his other slipper and threw it into the river as close to the other one. Now, Pasiano was left puzzled and questioned Jose's decision to throw the other slipper into the river. Jose told his older brother that it was pointless for him to keep the other slipper because he couldn't use only one. And he thought that anyone who would find both will be able to use it. So for the young Jose Rizal, the best thing to do is to provide anyone who finds the first pair a chance to use it. So he threw in the second. This story speaks a lot about our national heroes' maturity, even at a young age. But more than that, it speaks a lot about his profound sense of humanity, his profound sense of caring for others. Now, it is our hope that this spirit will continue to live among us, and this love of humanity would help us in this quest for transforming society with the important role of the private sector. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, on behalf of the Climate Change Commission, I sincerely welcome all of you to this business summit, and let us truly forge a partnership towards a climate-smart industry. Our work has been cut out for us. The commitment towards sustainable development is an everlasting ideal, and in other words, our work is really just beginning. The objective is to continue to incorporate climate change into public discourse and the industry vision for a truly sustainable, resilient Philippines. I thank all of you very kindly for joining us and walking with us in this journey. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat po. Mabuhay po ang Pilipino.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Yeb. Now, for the first keynote address for this morning, representing Undersecretary Adrian Cristobal is Assistant Secretary for Industry Development and Trade Policy, Department of Trade and Industry, ASEC Serafino Rodolfo. ASEC Rodolfo, dali lang. Bigyan niyo pa akong konting oras. Introduce ko muna ng maayos. Medyo nagmamadali yata yung ating background music. Okay? We'll just give you a brief background of ASEC Rodolfo. ASEC Rodolfo, naligaw tuloy ako, is a graduate of the University of the Philippines, School of Economics, with a general weighted average of 1.76. Ang taas, ano? 1.76. And he has received numerous awards and positions at UP, being an associate editor of the UPSE newsletter, an organizer of Pagtupad UPSE Political Party, founding chairman of UP Society, and also an honorific entrance scholar and a college scholar. Before joining government, he was with the Academe as a faculty and acting dean of the School of Management for the University of Asia and the Pacific, and where he served as senior trade policy advisor of the Department of Trade and Industry. Ladies and gentlemen, Assistant Secretary Serafino Rodolfo.
Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone, to our partners from the Climate Change Commission, Honorable Secretary Lucille Sering, Commissioner Naderev Sano, and from the PCCI, Attorney Mike Varela. First of all, my boss, the Undersecretary Adrian S. Cristobal, extends his well wishes to everyone. Plus, he also has a message to everyone, which I'll say later on as I close the speech. He actually just texted me to relay an information to you. Well, the Philippines is, as Typhoon Yolanda painfully showed us, along with the 20-plus typhoons yearly, it's one of the most vulnerable countries to the effects of climate change. This is the new normal, as mentioned already by Attorney Mike Varela, a constant reality that we have to face. Entire communities, towns, and cities and industries are affected. Our country needs more effective, well thought out, and long-term measures for climate change mitigation and adaptation. How can government and the private sector collaborate to make programs and business operations climate-proof? This climate proofing should complement the growth momentum of our economy. Our GDP has continued to soar beyond expectations, and our business environment is making significant headway, as manifested in the 2014 Doing Business Survey by the World Bank IFC, where we leaped by 30 steps, making our country among the 10 economies that improved the most in making regulations easier for business. We need to seize these opportunities for today, anticipate the challenges of tomorrow, and chart our directions towards a sustainable transition to green growth while developing climate-smart industries and services. The DTI will necessarily have to integrate climate resiliency factors in our programs to improve the business environment, increase productivity and efficiency, and enhance consumer welfare. Our current initiatives for green industry and trade are geared particularly to the support of micro, small, and medium enterprises, which among others include the SME Roving Academy, the Shared Service Facility, and the National Industry Cluster Capacity Enhancement Project. Let me just give you a background about each of these. The SME Roving Academy is a continuous learning program for the development of micro, small, and medium enterprises to become competitive in the domestic and international markets. It is designed to promote entrepreneurship, improve access to credit and markets, and increase productivity and efficiency. Among the regions that conducted Roving Academy activities, Region 7 included the green workplace as one of the topics in the program. For regions that will still implement their activities, Region 13 included topics such as greening the supply chain and market trends and trade opportunities on green products, while Region 6 included green productivity. The shared service facility, on the other hand, involves the provision of processing and or manufacturing tools, machinery, and equipment for common use by enterprises in the priority industry clusters nationwide to improve their production efficiency. New shared service facilities are seen to boost local industries' capability in food production, processing, cold storage, and packaging. As of May 2013, the total number of approved SSF projects is 443, with a total aggregate amount of about 424 million pesos. The National Industry Cluster Capacity Enhancement Project, on the other hand, aims to enhance the capacity of selected industry clusters to plan, implement, facilitate service delivery, evaluate projects, and improve industry competitiveness and business environment. The pilot clusters are milkfish, dairy, coffee, bamboo, ICT, health and wellness, tourism, wearables and home style, gifts and decors and housewares, rubber, tuna, palm oil, mango, banana, mining, coconut, seaweeds, and wood. The DTI, in support of the environmental protection and conservation objectives of the government, has consistently included in the general policies of the Investment Priorities Plan the requirement for registered enterprises to adopt measures intended to reduce climate change risk in support of the National Framework Strategy on Climate Change. This includes securing an environmental compliance certificate and other clearances under relevant environmental laws. Registered firms are required to plant trees as part of their corporate social responsibility. The IPP also encourages firms to secure environmental certifications based on internationally recognized standards and to participate in the Philippines Eco-Labeling Program. The IPP promotes and provides incentives to green projects and also includes RA 9003, or the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000, in its mandatory list. We are also actively involved in various environmental projects and initiatives of other government agencies, such as the DNR, particularly with the National Solid Waste Management Commission, to identify non-environmentally acceptable products, or NEP, as well as the work on solid waste management strategy and plans. We also work with the Protected Areas and Wildlife Bureau on biodiversity, the Pasig River Rehabilitation Commission on the rehabilitation of esteros, and the Makati Solid Waste Management Board on the implementation of RA 9003, well, among others. As co-implementers of this forum, we are eager to learn from your initiatives and strategies on climate change mitigation, as well as the concerns and challenges that you deal with. We in government cannot pretend to know your industry or business better than you. Together, we will have to define our goals, identify the reforms we need, prioritize our actions, and execute them in order to make climate change adaptation and mitigation an integral to core business policies and operations for a vibrant and green Philippine industry. With this forum, we are optimistic that the CCC, PCCI, and DTI will even have a stronger partnership in pursuing the green growth agenda of the government. There should be a good balance between environmental protection and industry development to effectively address the pressing social issues we face today and generate sustainable livelihoods. Only through a genuine partnership of shared aspirations, responsibilities, and duties can we sustain inclusive growth of our society. We need each other to succeed. Now, I would like to mention that in partnership with the GIZ, we have reviewed and assessed the DTI mission along with its programs from a green results perspective. One major recommendation from this mission, from this assessment, is in terms of integrating the green perspective in the roadmaps that our business sector have been formulating and has submitted to the DTI. Now, you would note that I'm sure you are well aware that the DTI, in partnership with the industry associations, are undertaking this roadmaps project. So as of now, we have about 21 roadmaps, 9 of which were already publicly presented. Now, these roadmaps will be consolidated to form the manufacturing industry roadmap, and eventually, together with the services sector roadmap and an agricultural sector roadmap, will form the comprehensive national industry strategy. Commissioner Sano earlier mentioned about the need for partnership between business and government towards making or towards climate smart industry. The Undersecretary has texted me to mention to you that indeed a very important or very concrete step that we can take is to subject these roadmaps to green assessment. With the help of development partners, with the help of the Climate Change Commission, that is exactly what we will try to do. Even as the roadmaps are business-led, are industry-led, DTI really has an important role in terms of mainstreaming climate change into business policies. So with the help of industry, with the help of CCC, development partners, we'll be convening the industry associations who have already submitted the roadmaps and assess their roadmaps from a green perspective. Well, we look forward to your active participation in the discussions today and an insightful exchange of ideas in this forum. So thank you and good day.
Thank you, ASEC Rodolfo. As mentioned by the previous speakers, it really makes good business sense for business to be involved in the solution of these climate change issues. For our next keynote address, we'd like to welcome and introduce Secretary Marie Ann Lucille Sering. She is an environmental education advocate. Prior to her stint in government, she served as the college secretary or associate dean of the San Sebastian College of Law. This is quite long, no? The introduction is quite long, talking about the rich, relevant experience that she is bringing into this summit. While in the academe, she advocated for environment law to be a mandatory subject in law schools. While teaching, she also studied her master's and earned her degree in social entrepreneurship, specializing on microfinance from the prestigious Asian Institute of Management. In 2007, she joined government and was appointed as Undersecretary of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, handling administration, finance, and legal, one of the youngest appointed to the post. While head of the legal department, she formed the Green Legal Warriors, a volunteer program for law students. She pushed for a specialized curriculum of mandatory continuing legal education to focus on environmental laws for all lawyers at the DENR, the first of its kind ever introduced at the department and in any MCLE course. In 2009, she was selected as a member by then Chief Justice Renato Puno of the Supreme Court to the technical working group that drafted the landmark and the first environmental rules of the court of the country. She was one of the only two non-Supreme Court justices members that drafted the rules. The environmental rules of court allows the filing of the writ of kalikasan, a legal remedy that protects one's right for a healthy environment. From the DNR, she was appointed as one of the pioneer members of the Climate Change Commission, a commission created by virtue of Climate Change Act of 2009. The President of the Republic sits as the chair of the commission, and as a commissioner member, she was eventually promoted as vice chairperson. In just 2 years in the commission, she helped push for the passage of Republic Act 10174, amending the Climate Change Act. The law created the People's Survival Fund, a fund that will help local government finance its climate change adaptation and disaster risk management programs. She also conceptualized the Eco-Town, a framework that will help local communities plan on how to protect the environment and still earn from it. This framework is now currently piloted in 2 of the top of the poorest countries in. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Secretary Marie Ann Lucille Sering.
Thank you so much for the very long introduction. I'm just relieved that you did not include my vital statistics. You made me look so old with that kind of introduction. I'm way younger than I look, actually. First of all, I'd like to thank PCCI, Attorney Miguel Varela, for partnering with the Climate Change Commission, and as well as for DTI for sending the representative, ASEC Rodolfo Seferino, and of course, my colleague, my friend, Commissioner Yeb Sanyo, who just arrived from Poland a few days back. And to everybody here, to the officers of the different regions of the PCCI, again, thank you for coming and for doing this with us. I was tasked to give a keynote. This is already our 3rd day of observing Climate Change Consciousness Week. Some student actually asked me, were you unconscious before? That's why your title is Consciousness. I said, well, there's a difference really on awareness and consciousness. We can be aware and just be passive. But when you're conscious that you're not doing anything, it seems to be second nature. Although if you look at the dictionary, the definition of awareness as consciousness is almost the same. But in my context, it's not. If I know that I'm fat and I'm conscious, I'll probably go on a diet. Or maybe on a hunger strike. Yep. By the way, he didn't go for a hunger strike. There's a big difference with that. And you know how media plays it up. It's fasting. And because of this, I was tasked to make a presentation. I thought I'm just going to give a keynote. But nonetheless, I presented this already in the low emission development during the months ago when we sponsored an international event here in Manila. And I would like to show you what we prepared and just give you an idea on where the government is heading and why the private sector, more than ever, needs to know what the government is doing, because we need to work together for us to be able to address the impacts of climate change. We know that Commissioner Yabsanyo did mention about a report in September. And maybe not a lot of people know what this report really mean on a global, on a more bigger scale. If you're an individual, you always seem to think, well, this is not my fault. This is for government to do and government to act on it. But that report is a reiteration of a previous report. The biggest difference is that the scientists are now saying unequivocally, 95% certain, that the cause of increase in temperature is extremely likely due to human activities. If that's the finding, and what makes this report also significant is that they're saying not all scientists agree in consensus to come up with a conclusion such as this. If there's anyone who would be difficult and hard-pressed to give a categorical statement, it would be scientists. But this one, they said, it is extremely likely that not the Philippines, but human activities really contributed to the increase in warming. Now, what does an increase in warming do? Why should we be alarmed? What is that to us, especially those who are in the business sector? So if we look at this, we're looking at a low emission development. The Philippines is one of the fastest growing economy. We even outpaced China in the first quarter of this year. A lot of rating agencies were saying we have increased, and one of the contributors in the increase is really we have seen an increase in an industry and manufacturing sector. This is good news. But if you put it in the context, for example, of what increased warming, what caused the increase in warming is this. It's because of the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution that contributed to the increase in warming because of the use of energy that are considered dirty, that they contributed to the emission of greenhouse gases that fueled that revolution. So when we look at this data in the context of the Philippines, we can now say that the Philippines is also headed in that direction. With an increased industry and manufacturing sector, we're mimicking what the developed countries had been doing in the past. And this contributed to an increase in GDP. We know what industrialization means in this room. It is a society or a community that starts from an agrarian society moving towards more focusing on manufacturing of goods and services. It's a good thing. We need it. We need more jobs. We need more revenue so that we can be able to provide a good quality of life for our people. And it's a noble intention. But we also know that the Philippines is the most vulnerable country in the world with respect to the impacts of climate. Here in the room, as businesses, we know that a good location makes good business. Unfortunately, if we are to look at the characteristics of the Philippines, our location is not really very good. If we are to talk in the context of business, because we are in a Pacific Ring of Fire where the typhoon in the eastern part of the country starts to, dun sila nag-uumpisa, and almost always we become a hub of typhoons. Meaning, they form somewhere here in the east, they pass the Philippines, and they go to Japan. They form somewhere here, they pass to the Philippines, they go to Taiwan. We won't like to be a hub. If you're an airline, it would be a good thing. But not when it comes to typhoon. The reason why we're vulnerable is a lot of factors. But if you look at the factors and try to see, can I still survive this? Can I still solve this? Actually, yes. And that gives us a lot of hope. And if you look at our vulnerability and the reason why we're vulnerable, they said, one, a lot of risk. We're visited by 19 to 20 typhoons in a year. But by the way, Yolanda was already our 24th, and Zoraida is our 25th, and God forbid, I hope that there will no more typhoons at least for the rest of the year. But looking at our climatology, they're expecting at least 2 more. And I hope it doesn't make landfall. So, exposed number of risk. Second, number of people exposed to risk. It's not of the increase in population which is the problem. It's the spread. Just like in any business, if you put too much in one basket, it's not good. In our country, because of lack of opportunities in the rural areas, there's now an increase in urban migration to the tune of almost 60 to 70%, and I hope my estimate or the statistics is correct. So it means that there are more people moving to the urban area looking for jobs, and the first place they will locate are areas where it's, if they have relatives, and if they don't have relatives, it's the cheapest housing would be where the risky areas are. We're talking about esteros, sa tabi ng ilog, malapit sa dagat. It not only restricts our flow of water, knowing that in Metro Manila, our drainage system can only absorb 26% of water. Add more of this increase in rainfall simply because marami na pong na-evaporate because of the increase of warming, marami nang binabagsak na tubig dahil nga marami nang nakukuhang tubig, dagdagan mo pa ng basura. So if you look at it and all of that, doable naman palang solusyonan. That's why in a context of climate change adaptation, knowing that our rain will continue to increase in volume, knowing that our infrastructure is considered weak, and this is the third factor. Knowing all of these things, we need to be able to do our disaster risk management based on that context. Because, my friends, this is not just about saving lives, although it is primordial. It is also about protecting our businesses and our economy. A macroeconomy will probably survive, will continue to grow, but it's the local economy that most hurtful, will feel the pain of every typhoon. And Governor Salceda said it succinctly yesterday, that every time a typhoon hits in a town, automatically it increases the poverty incidence. So every time a community takes a while for it to recover, is a drain to resources. And every money spent for rehabilitation and reconstruction is money taken away from my basic services, our basic services of health and education. So if we are to look at it as in a business point of view, and we're all businesses person here, climate is now a business risk. But if I continue to tell people that we're vulnerable, I need to be able to show what government is also doing and what the private sector is contributing. Most of the contribution in my GDP anyway is coming from the private sector. So you have a stake at this more than anybody else. Why do I need to get out of that list? Because I don't want to be investing in any area if you keep on telling me you're vulnerable and you're not doing anything about it. The contribution therefore in government is in areas where you will not intervene, in areas where market-based mechanism is yet to be mature. That is why our investment in government is focused on early warning system, setting up tools to make you informed about your vulnerability and risk in areas you invest, so that in that way, not only will you lessen your risk, you also are able to invite another kind of market-based mechanism to which the country is trying to pursue, is the risk transfer mechanism. We've seen how Japan was able to recover after Fukushima because their insurance penetration is high. In the Philippines, we hear about insurance, but unfortunately, our insurance penetration is still very low. We need to be able to bring in the private sector to invest in this kind of mechanism so that we were able to recover money from it and not rely always in government, because government can only do so much. So if we look at our vulnerability and all the lists that we see, with the Philippines number 3, with the Philippines almost in the top 10, there is now a need to truly invest on an honest-to-goodness climate change adaptation and disaster risk management. Because most of our damages are actually or mostly caused by water. Dahil sa pagbaha, dahil sa dami ng ulan, sa mga leptospirosis, sa mga dengue, na kahit summer ay nagkakaroon doon ng dengue cases. Sabi nga, buti pa ang lamok nakapag-adapt na, ang tao hindi pa. So this, my friends, is what government is trying to do. This is the contribution we want to give the private sector. To give you the information that there are tools available to keep you informed that there are areas that might be difficult to invest, but even if it's difficult to invest there are already infrastructure on its way to enable investments. Next, please. Why are we embarking on a low-emission and sustainable development pathway, even if we know that we're not one of the highest emitter? If we look at our inventory, 50% is in energy, next is waste, agriculture, waste, and industries. If you look at the contribution of industries from the first inventory to the second, you've been so efficient that of the 4 that we've inventoried, kayo po yung pinakamababang increase from the first to the second. But not because of your concern, but because of necessity. We are have one of the highest costs of electricity in the country. It makes sense to be efficient. And that's good in the context of climate change because it is a climate change mitigation. But what's alarming though is that even if you operate efficiently now, the product that you produce ends up in landfills. We've seen that the first to the second inventory of our greenhouse gases, the increase was 64%. It shows that the increase in economy also shows an increase in the purchasing power, and it shows an increase in emission. So if this is what the context is, the National Solid Waste Commission is a relevant commission. However, since its passage, we know that only the implementation is 20% below. One of the restraints of the implementation of the National Solid Waste Act is that you come up with a mandate to require LGUs to resolve their waste, but you didn't tell them where to get the money. And then everybody wants to invest on a solid waste sanitary landfill without even looking at whether how many waste are you actually generating in a day. In short, some of the local governments are not really business people, not meaning in it in a bad way. But because they are required by law to set up sanitary landfills, and even on a clustering, and spends millions of pesos, the return of investment is so long that it's no longer practical to have one. In short, if they have a sanitary landfill, they will have to force people to generate waste so they can collect this waste so that they can put it in the landfill to make a return on investment. So all these policies that we have are well-intentioned. But because of the law that creates a climate change commission and other agencies as well, we're now getting to understand these policies that are sometimes, instead of hazing investment, they are a restriction to investment. So next, please. Now we have a Clean Air Act. We have the Renewable Energy Act, which Commissioner Yeb Sanyo was one of the movers when he was still in his previous organization. The Philippines, if we are to go to a development, we want to do industrialization with a conscience. Kahit hindi tayo biggest emitter, if we are to believe of the report that came out in The Guardian, there are only 90 companies that are contributing to 2/3 of the emission in the world, and most of them are located in developed countries. So kung titingnan mo, wala sa kalingkingan ang Pilipinas sa mga emisyon na to. Pero, para magkaroon tayo ng moral ground to say, hey, Mr. Developed Country, kami nga hindi mataas ang emisyon, we're still gonna do it the right way. Because hindi lang the right way, dahil may opportunities talaga. Climate change is not about disaster. It's also about opportunities. And this is where the private sector and even banking companies now, I'm glad that we have a partnership with BPI, and now we're talking to BDO and other banking institutions. They're now looking at investing on not only in renewable, but climate change technologies. Kasi, if you look at this, we have a renewable energy. We are one of the highest potential in solar energy, second in the world in geothermal, second to the United States, one of the highest potential in ocean energy, and this could be a good sources of energy. We know that some are still complaining of the cost, but, well, I think Commissioner Sanyo can tell you this, the grid parity, tama ba yan? The grid parity na nababasa nyo simply means that coal and fossil fuel and oil, patuloy na po itong tataas sa presyo. And at one point, and if demand is enough, the grid parity, ibig sabihin, at one point, at a certain number of years, magtatabla na rin ang presyo ng renewable at conventional. Some are saying that hindi naman siya 24/7. It's just augmenting. But there are other renewable energy that can be 24/7. Hydropower, for example. Not only hydropower, we also have natural gas, for example, and even waste to energy. So we have a framework already. Now we have the National Climate Change Action Plan. And one of the theme under the National Climate Action Plan is why we're here today. We cannot just think, hindi porket sinabi ng ating mga kaibigan sa labas, na kailangan yung mag-green economy, maglabas kayo ng mga regulasyon. Hindi pwede. Kailangan pag-aralan dahil paano ko poprotektahan ang mga industriya kung hindi pa po handa mag-transition. Kaya itong forum po natin na ito is intended to keep you informed that maybe at one point in our regulation, because we are already restrained in terms of our low emission regulation, baka magkaroon ng regulation. At gusto namin ng ating industriya ay handa kung sakasakali mang mangyari ito. We're talking about 2015 in the negotiations. Ang nangyari po sa Warsaw, kaya medyo may konting giitan,